What's up, friends, family? Got this Ride-Tech airbag suspension system in for $500. Gonna be putting this in on Ruby 53 Chevy Bel Air. So this install, pretty surprised at its simplicity. From the lower bracket on the airbag system all the way to the top, there's no welding. That's completely bolted together. The only welding that needs done is on this upper shock mount for the new shocks, which will be externally mounted. The lower shock mounts bolt on to the lower A-arm. This is the three pieces disassembled, and here's one partially assembled for demonstration. It's all bolted together. I think the only problem I'm gonna have is the difference from these two plates. I got a problem over there. I'm gonna have to open up that area for the bolt for this to pass through on the lower area A-arm. Everything other than that looks pretty good. The top of this unit mounts, this part right here goes through where the old upper shock. This is where the upper airbag suspension is going to mount through. I think I'm gonna have to open up that hole a little bit. No biggie. I got bits for that. And so yeah, I'm pretty impressed with this deal because it's minimal welding. I'm gonna have to do some cutting, probably some re-tapping after I cut that bolt. Like I said, I'm gonna have to run into an issue here because it's not gonna fit. It's not gonna fit. If you see this, it's open from here to here is all I have. So I'm gonna have to either open this up a little bit or I'm gonna have to cut this plate. Cut it in half, nice clean cut, and then cut some of the meat out of it and then re-weld it. Either way is feasible. If I go the other route and I cut that bolt, then it's gonna get all burgered up. The bolt hole's gonna get all burgered up, and so I'm gonna have to tap it, clean it up so it's usable again. But no, I'm pretty impressed with this kit. I think if I don't run any problems, man, I'll be able to statically control this with my air compressor. Got fittings, 10 foot of 3/8 airline, and I got some T's. I got some tire nipples and stuff like that, so I'll be able to hook it up to my compressor and statically control it. The system is rated at 150 psi. These bags, I mean, is what their max is, but they say you should be able to get away with 100 psi to be at ride height. And when you're at perfect ride height, the lower A-arm this guy right here, when the car is on the floor, should be parallel with the floor. That's when they say perfect ride height, so you don't eat up your tires. So kind of just want to talk about making this Ride-Tech airbag system a little bit more secure, and a couple tips here on how to assemble the upper mount with this 7/16 all thread and the lower bolt, along with the fitting that's required for this. So when this is all said and done, it's gonna be holding up. It's gonna be lifting up Ruby here, the 53 Bel Air. So what's some of the improvements and some of the tips? What I've done here is I've got two models here. This one's assembled, driver's side, ready to go in. Passenger side for demonstration, because they got this 7/16 all thread here, and I don't know what they had 1 page of instructions. So what I did is I made some improvements and kind of came up with this little jimmy rig system to get this all thread tightened down and secure so that it doesn't come out while you are driving down the road with your family. So there's 2 demonstrations here. So this piece of all thread, you can't tighten it down, you know, really doesn't have a tightening down point because it's all thread. And so what you can do is take 2 nuts, 7/16, use the one that came with, you have to have an extra one. And so you just twist one to the right, and then you twist the other one to the left, jamming them together, and then you can actually grab a hold of the all thread with the wrench or whatever and jam it down in there. And I also put 1 drop of this red stuff. I recommend the blue stuff. This red stuff is really hard, but it's about safety and security, you know, when you're with the family. Then to add to that, I took that additional nut. This guy just can't wait to go cruising. He wants to get closer to the car and get going. And so once this was tightened down, yeah, there he goes again. Once it was tightened down, I used that extra nut, and with a 18mm, just jammed it all the way down as hard as I could with the wrench. And as you can see, this one is assembled. Everything's tightened up. There's Loctite down there. This extra nut I provided is torqued on to this piece of all thread, so it's an additional support. My air fitting did come with Teflon. Use Teflon, wrap it around twice. Put it on with the direction of the threads, not the opposite direction, because it'll be purposeless if you do that. And if I would have made some improvements, I would have used a different type of air fitting system, something a little bit more leak proof, but these will suffice for now. Because in the long run, you'll have some leaks in the system, and you have to troubleshoot and find out why your pump is running so much and draining your battery. But that's later on down the road. A brand new system should be all right. And this guy, I put 1 drop or maybe 2 of the red Loctite, and I also did paint these. So you got to paint them or they'll rust. Eventually rust, and they get all boogered up, and it's no bueno. So from a hardware perspective, in order to get this ride height airbag kit installed, a lot of the stuff needs taken apart. Caliper guy, usually you can get a hanger, or I'll probably just get another box, a little taller one, and set it over here on the side. Rotor come off, just set that somewhere. Spindle needs to come off and get out of the way. I'm gonna need I think they call it a pitchfork or something right here. Slam it, press it in here with the hammer, and it undoes this joint. Same thing with the bottom. Another one down here, the very bottom. Because I don't really have to mess with the steering mechanism, I'll probably just take the spindle, set it over here on a box, and then I can get to work and get this get a spring compressor and compress that spring, get the pressure off of it. Take this bolt off from the top. That's the upper shock mount. And I already have an Allen in there. I think it's a 3/8, and it's already in there in the Allen. And bolt that goes all the way across, and that's the lower shock mount, and that puppy should come out after that. A couple updates on the process and steps here. Like I said, the caliper and the spindle got to get out of the way, and the caliper, you just have these, you got two of these guys, 3/8 Allen goes in there, get that guy out of the way, and this guy right here, 222 millimeters. It's a good idea to count these threads here as a reference so that you know how tight to tighten it, because it's kind of one of those things that'll just keep going and going, but all you're doing is just putting pressure up into this joint area, and you want to put the proper amount of pressure so you don't blow this out prematurely, or not properly position your spindle area up onto this, and you actually wear out your threads here. So it's a good idea to count those. Hopefully it was done by a professional suspension shop, and it's a good reference that you're going by. Write them down, take a Sharpie, write them down like I did. Like I said, I just get a couple boxes, just put the things on the side so they're there and ready to get put back on. Another box here for all my parts. Yep, so now gotta get this guy out, shock, and this plate, I'm gonna have to cut it out, and then I'll go from there. So I've made some progress, and as you can see, I got everything disassembled. Spring is out, shock is in. I put the shock in for what I'm trying to get at here. So what happened here is this spring here is under a lot of pressure, and you don't want it to fly out and bang you in the head, take out an eyeball, or something worse than that. Who knows? Hit a kid or whatever. So what I did is I got this. I got my jack, and I've positioned the jack right underneath this deal, and kind of used it as a wedge to push the whole thing up, to try and act as a safeguard as I was relieving the pressure from the spring. So I would slowly lower this and wiggle on the spring, put some pressure on it, see if I can see some movement. So what you wanted to see is, I wanted it to break contact from the back, because that's where it's primarily contacting, from the back, and it was completely pressed into. There's like a little rubber seal in here. It was pretty well seated in there, and it didn't want to budge. So I loosened this guy up all the way, hoping I can get it to break off of this point here and the point down here. See if I can see it move freely. See the spring just bouncing there freely. And it kind of didn't work. It was getting looser and looser. I was seeing progress, but it wasn't exactly working what I wanted to get. And so I took the lower shock bolt completely out while holding it with this, just to make sure it didn't pop or anything, and it didn't do anything. Took the bolt out and took this, basically left about a 1/4 inch gap right here, just to make sure if it did pop out, I still had the spring there as the shock as a safeguard, and the jack here hydraulically holding this from being thrown all the way down and the spring coming at me. And so finally I was able to get this down low enough to press the lower A arm low enough, and the spring just came free. So saved myself I don't know, $20 rental and a trip to AutoZone. So just an FYI, you can do it. You can do it yourself if you got that mechanical aptitude, and you can use your own intuition to try to push through this. But I will include a disclaimer as well. Don't do this unless you do have the aptitude. Got everything tore apart. So the lower bag mount, had to cut it open, bevel it to allow it to move and swivel as needed. as the car demands. So here's the driver's side one in place. I also had to, I think like I mentioned before, I had to cut open these tabs right in here. I had to open them up to allow the bracket to fit. And when I did that, I had to go get another bolt. This is a 7/16 with a pitch of 14. And the old bolt has a 5-inch stem. The new bolt I picked up in Las Vegas has 6-inch stem. So it's going to compensate for that loss of some of the meat I had to cut out from these little ears here, so that give it proper support as we go down the road, because we don't want that. I don't want this thing falling out. But yeah, so that's where I'm at. Everything is all tore apart. You can tell that this is the Mustang 2 because of that bevel cap up on top. Mustang 2, and I've got all Moog joints. I've got a bad gasket right there, but as long as I keep a squirt of grease in this thing every period or so, I should be all right. I'm gonna look into what I can do. Maybe there's some replacement caps, because that's pretty much what they are. Zero PSI. Ready for testing. Inspected for any objects that could be rubbing on this. Looks pretty clear.